Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast for media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, LuckyEevee, and Stryker. Today is our 15th episode, and we're discussing 1991's Freddie as FR07, aka Freddie the Frog. So, let's get things started. Yep, here we go.
If you know that
we're in for it today.
Yeah, if you know that, heard that,
probably the
it is
weirdest
very
thing
much
we've
French.
reviewed so far.
Yeah,
so the backstory behind this movie is that basically a father told his son stories about his favorite little toy frog being some kind of like a James Bond secret agent. Now, said father was a high-level movie producer in the UK and apparently got enough funding to actually make the movie. His name, John Sevsky, I think it is. I think it's pronounced. He's credited with directing, writing, and producing this, and this was his one film. And what a film it is. This has got to be in the top 50 of the, not the worst, but the strangest animated movies ever made. Because this movie is basically like a fever dream. I mean, so much of it is completely randomly thrown together. It feels like they had 500 different scripts and they decided, let's put everything in. And you could definitely see it in the final project.
Yeah, and AKA, and in most parts, it's pretty much the author's barely disguised fetish.
That too. And we're going to get to one part of that much later on.
Yeah.
The other funny thing too is that the movie got a bunch of big hit makers from the 80s, like, Asia, Boy George, Grace Jones. And this movie came out in 1991, so not a lot of people were listening to Boy George by 1991. So that in the beginning is kind of a bad sign. But the animation on this movie, and that's probably the best part of this movie, is the animation. For a studio who made, this was their first and only project, it looks really good. Not as good as, like, say, the works of Don Bluth or Disney or, anything coming out of Japan, but it is comparable with, say, something like We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. It actually does have, good character designs. It has, pretty fluent movements, especially with the main villain, and we'll get to him in a little while, but this movie overall is definitely one that should be watched. More of a curiosity than an enjoyment thing, although it is a lot of fun, especially if you get a big group of people and you watch it, you will have a blast.
Also, a thing to note, the film not only has fluent animation, but it has very much two iconic and very noteworthy musical number scenes that will definitely be covered later.
Yep. So the movie begins with Freddie driving his car through Paris, that looks like it got the 28 days later treatment, as there's nobody on the street or the road.
And also in his freaking weird anthro frog car, who also
it looks
has
like
a
female version. It looks like a female version of Benny the Cab from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The whole time looking at it, I'm thinking of it. It's like, what is that?
It's not even antho. It's like semi-sentient.
Yeah, it's semi-sentient, and also kind of reminds me
like it has thoughts, feelings, and it can move on its own.
Yeah, it also pretty much makes me think. Like, I know this film is somewhat of a spoof, sort of like something like Casino Royale sort of was, but oh my gosh, man, the fact that FR07 gets all the bitches pretty much, especially his own car, oh my gosh, he is 100% just a 007 ripoff, except a frog and a freaking telepath on a car with something like
1967.
I saw it from the title. Yeah. There was no game.
Yeah, exactly.
It was 007.
Yeah, exactly. They knew what this movie was. Exactly. So yeah,
I've seen more subtle harem anime.
Yes. Exactly.
What did you say, Math?
Sorry.
I said I've seen more subtle harem anime.
Fair. So this doesn't completely go that route, thank goodness.
Freddie gets all of two women in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So after the intro, we actually get Freddie's backstory, and the first 20 minutes of the film are very sedate compared to what happens later. This is more like something trying to be kind of, sort of, I guess, like Disney in a way, because you have, the whole basically aspect with him being the young prince and learning magic from his father and stuff like that. If the movie was just about like this sort of story, I don't think it nearly would have been remembered as well, because for the most part, this is probably not the weakest part of the film because it looks good, but it is probably the least memorable part of the movie. It's very much not stock, not standard, because it does have a charm to it, especially with the character designs, but compared to the rest of the movie, it is probably the weakest point.
Yeah, also a thing to note about with the beginning, like, there are two versions of this film. There's the US version and the UK version.
Oh, that's
the
right.
US version is narrated by what's his name? James Earl Jones. And the second one is voiced by a guy who occasionally can't help but burst into song at certain points, and it just feels like that one Monster Cookie commercial where that guy at one point just like ad-libs and like sings a certain part, which
exactly
is a little weird and a little off-putting.
Yeah, exactly.
Also,
we're reviewing the
all in flashback.
Yeah, that too. Because we see Freddie feeding his fish, and then it cuts to this flashback. Now, we are reviewing the UK cut for this because the US cut is actually kind of lost to time, at least on the internet. There is very few to no videos of it available, but the UK cut is the one that you'll find on like YouTube and Dailymotion, and pretty much every single streaming website pretty much out there has this movie, because no one knows who owns the rights to this thing.
Yeah, I have seen. I will say I saw the US version first, and that one was a little shorter, but seeing the UK version, yeah, it's certainly unique and certainly adds to the weirdness a little more.
Oh, definitely. So then we're introduced to the villain, Macinda. She's an interesting villain, and by looking at her, especially in her human form, they're definitely taking her from like Maleficent or Queen Grimhilda from Disney Snow White. Now, I like her design. The one thing that does kind of is off-putting is the accent. To me, I don't know, that accent is just so comically thick. She sounds like Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh my god.
A little bit. Like, not too rough, but I will say that the accent kind of does feel a little bit like Jessie from Pokemon, the musical.
Oh that too, yeah.
Oh, it's not. Though I don't hate either.
No, both I don't either.
Perfectly fine on their own.
I feel like you needed more of a sterner, probably more. I don't want to say it, but a more coherent kind of a voice, because some of her lines are a little bit slurred, and it can be. And maybe it's also because most of the recordings of this are like taken from a VHS copy, but it can be hard to understand what she's saying. But sometimes. The fact that she has basically the powers to transform other beings in that is definitely a unique take. And her Cobra form is the one that she takes throughout 90% of the movie.
Yeah,
it actually looks way better than her human design. I'm gonna be honest, because that one, I feel like the way they incorporate her human form into the animal she takes definitely reminds me a lot, and I would not be surprised the animators took direct inspiration from Sword in the Stone with the wizard duel, with how they take Merlin and Mim's features and apply them to the animals. They did the same thing with Macinda here, and it works out well. It works out very well. And her Cobra form definitely has, shall we say, human attributes to it.
I have never seen
basically sachets around
with
like
such defined hips.
Yeah,
and rear end too. Let's not forget about that. Exactly. But the effects of like the transformation with the lighting effects and such are very well done, and how she tries to off Freddie, that whole chase sequence again is another aspect of the movie that I feel that they put a lot of effort into. It feels like basically this movie, at least to me, it feels like they had like 5 different teams working on it. Like they had one team animating the, medieval intro. Then you have one team doing basically the spy thing, and neither team knew what the other was doing. This literally feels like they took two movies and just stapled it together, basically, because
pretty much, because it went like from freaking medieval times and like Freddie being a young frog to like going to like a New Orleans sort of swamp-inspired area that honestly wouldn't be too out of place in something like say Amphibia.
I even got confused midway through that opening. It's like, wait, what kind of movie was I watching again?
Yeah,
exactly. The medieval part goes on for so long that you actually forget that, oh, right, this is supposed to be like a spy movie thing. And the New Orleans frogs is definitely, I've always said this, I don't remember where I read this, but I've always, remembered this comment. Someone once said, this is the rejected pencil test from Princess and the Frog. And it's like, yeah, accurate.
I can maybe see that. Yeah. But anyways, it goes from medieval times to New Orleans freaking thing to Freddie eventually going like, you know what? Screw this shit. I'ma grow big and I'ma be an anthro frog. I don't give a fuck. He could have easily turned back to normal, but instead he's just like, you know what? I'm so used to this. I can just fucking do whatever I want. And he just becomes a fucking spy for little reason other than just because.
Exactly. That's why, like I say, the tonal shift is so strange because at one point, like you're with the Louisiana Frogs, they're doing like the jazz thing, and you're like, oh, this a cute little movie. Then all of a sudden, out of complete nowhere, Freddie goes from being like a normal cartoon frog to like a weird anthro frog man, and it just, his design, it's not bad, it's just baffling. It's like I understand why they probably went with that because having him as like a normal frog would be a little difficult, but still, it's like, why did it need to even happen? Aside from the backstory. Characters that are introduced who will become important later, including one that we will mention a little bit later on in this review. The medieval portion of it seems almost like padding, but not that it's bad padding because, again, it looks good, and probably one of the better pieces of animation in the movie is the whirlpool that Macinda creates. It's the under and above water. That looks really good. That and the underwater backgrounds. You can definitely tell that someone put a lot of effort into that part, especially that part.
They really put
this movie.
For some reason, but that's the thing with this movie in general. There's parts of it where the animation all of a sudden gets like a huge boost of quality in some spots, and it's like, well, why didn't you have this sort of level of detail for the entire movie? But regardless,
they probably had a bias for that sort of thing. Like they had a bias for the freaking Nessies. They had a bias for the transformation scenes. They had a bias for the snake and the freaking evil things. Like holy,
they had bias for El Supremo, the main villain, as well.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness,
Supremo. He's voiced by Brian Blessed, and if you know Brian Blessed, he gives 110% in no matter what movie he's in, no matter what anything he's in. Anytime he appears, even on like television or movie or anything, he is worth watching. He's one of those actors like Christopher Walken,
or
Tim Curry, who makes everything better. Everything.
Was blessed in this movie. I swear.
Yes,
exactly. Not cursed, but blessed. Exactly.
Understood the assignment. 100% say the same for his design, even though holy hell, that design feels so fucking flamboyant. Like they go from freaking a freaking snake lady who sachets with their freaking middle of her body. I don't exactly know how snake anatomy works, but let's just say her hips. To a freaking tubby guy with all the freaking fluidity of someone like, say, Darla Dimple or K. Rool from the Donkey Kong Country series. Like, holy fuck.
Exactly.
Man.
Exactly right. But yeah, like you said, so when Freddie becomes an adult, he's voiced by Ben Kingsley, who, of course, he went from playing Gandhi to playing Freddie, and then he just did a bunch of
Marvel stuff.
Marvel stuff, and of course the cinematic classic, lest we forget, The Love Guru, the absolute cinematic classic.
Never heard of it.
yes, that. Yeah, but no. So this is not the worst movie he was in by a margin.
Yeah,
And
honestly, this is a very entertaining movie. Like,
yeah,
it's certainly a little above middle of the road, but not enough to really say that it's perfect. You know?
Exactly. But yeah, like I said, the fact that Freddie is somehow alive, hundreds of years later, centuries later, and a secret agent. That's one of the least weird things about this movie.
It's magic.
Exactly, it's magic.
Shit.
Exactly. But yeah, the character designs are very well done of like all the ministers and that. You kind of get a sense that the character designs wanted to make their basically faces or their appearances reflect their personalities. And it does work. It really is a way that Hollywood Road Productions, okay, the studio that made this, never made another movie, unfortunately, but you could definitely tell they had a lot of talented people working on this. And I think the animation was actually all done in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. This was an entirely homegrown animated feature.
Yeah. And
the way a lot of the faces look, if you've never seen the movie, it's very similar to how Warner Brothers in the early 90s did celebrities, where their faces were larger and more exaggerated.
Like with the Animaniacs and stuff like that. And even like the old style of shorts, like the Hollywood Stepped Out, kind of like these...
also, the magic kind of feels very much like WB, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can definitely see that too.
Yeah.
El Supremo's scheme is basically to take all of the landmarks and shrink them so that he can steal the basically national pride of a kingdom, which will destroy the kingdom. And the thing that to me is so weird, between like the use of like Stonehenge and the ruins, I was very much reminded of Halloween 3. Like all I was expecting him to do was to put like a silver shamrock mask on Freddy, and play the TV with like the hypnotic, flashing pumpkin.
Oh my goodness!
It really much reminds me of that.
Been very interesting. It also kind of reminds me of that one scene from whatever the film was. It was the futuristic robot one with Vincent Price, I think. And like he's like science, and he has the freaking scientist guy, the older one, like suffer to a machine that like freaking decimates his brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, like I said, the character designs are really fun. Basically, the funny thing is the character, Daffy's the main female, I guess you'd say the love interest, because she is.
Manny Petty, I like to call her, because that's what it sounds
looks
like.
a lot. She reminded me a lot of April O'Neil. I definitely got that vibe from her with the design.
Also, you want to know a strange thing? Like, holy crap, the magic in that is mostly reserved to like transformation, shrinking, and pretty much just overall telepathy.
Oh yeah.
Which I mean, again, there's not much really there, but like the stuff that does ultimately happen that's like out of the blue and like makes the plot go forward, I guess. Just see the image that I posted in the chat.
Yeah, anyway. I see it. It is exactly like that. Yeah,
it's magic. I ain't gotta explain shit.
Exactly. But yeah, Scotty, the basically weapons expert, who's I guess kind of like a Q from Star Trek. No, that's a different Q. Q from James Bond. That would be an across the road. Yeah, basically a Q from James Bond. He looks a little bit like a Bluth human. He has that sort of maybe
he also
like
kind of reminds me of the Animaniacs a little bit.
I'd say something like from Thumbelina, to be honest. If I basically was
honestly like. I think I've noticed with every human male in this movie is that they have overly large chin.
For the most part, yeah.
That seems like it was an intentional design.
Surprisingly, the only people who don't have large chins are, for the most part, the villainess, the Nessies. We'll get to them in a bit, and
that's why I said specifically human males.
Yeah, exactly. Like all the males have freaking the crimson chin going on, like
exactly.
Especially fucking El Supremo. My God.
Yeah, that chin's like
the chin to shame.
Yeah,
exactly.
That chin on El Supremo makes him look like a freaking beetle, or like one of those beetles from Anastasia. Like, holy crap.
I can definitely see that. But yeah, like I say, the scene with the horse track, basically where Freddie comes up with the genius scheme to allow himself to be captured. It reminded me a lot of the Bond movie From a View to a Kill. Basically, that was the one with the Christopher Walken as Max Zorn, and the last one with Roger Moore. It's a fun one. I like it. But then again, I like Roger Moore, which probably explains why I like this movie too. Exactly. But yeah, when Freddie is But now let us talk about the probably one of the more standout moments of the movie, and one of the ones that is remembered, the song Evil Mania, which is probably one of the 2 best songs in the movie. It's sung by, of course, Grace Jones, who I just mentioned, who ironically was just in From a View to a Kill. She's the Bond girl / evil henchman Mayday, and she's good in that, and she's a really good singer. I mean, in this song completely slaps. I mean, this is great. But that's not the part of the movie that most people remember with Evil Mania, because the U.S. version had to do a lot of cutting out for this number.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, in this song.
Yes. They have a lot of shit in it. They have knights. They have Ku Klux Klan members. They have Nazis. They have NFT monkeys before NFT monkeys was a thing. They have freaking stormtroopers. Like, this movie throws a lot of evil out the window.
I feel like the animators were just told, draw things that are evil, and they were like, okay. And they just, believe me, they had fun with this number. Because you could definitely see with choreographing it to the song and that, and Macinda with all the hip shaking does, and again, she's a snake, and yet she's shaking her hips around. Does not compute kind of deal. But
even though
that was intentional. That was intentional.
For some reason, absolutely does have physical hips. despite being a snake.
Exactly.
Also a mic with her freaking tail.
That was clever. I will say that was a clever aspect to it.
I mean, snakes do have pretty prehensile bodies, so
that is true. And holy hell.
Yeah, that's not too out of the ordinary for a snake.
Yeah, tell you how much of a fever dream this song is. Nazis doing the Macarena is probably the least weird thing about it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this was 1991, so this even predated even the Spanish version of the song, the original version. So
the Inquisition, which honestly I don't doubt was part of that entourage.
Oh, exactly. It's like. And the crazy thing, they're all dancing to Grace Jones. It's like, okay, I don't think that those kind of people would be into that kind of music, but you do you.
Not really.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
This is amazing. And all the wrong.
Exactly.
I'm also like 9% sure
we don't give a shit.
I'm also like 9% sure it's like a dance or you die kind of thing.
Yeah,
exactly. I can
especially with how many of her own fucking minions she kills it within the song.
That too. And that's the other interesting thing, that Macinda, even though the first basically 20 minutes of the movie hyped her up as being like, oh, this big great evil. For the most part of the movie, she's the sidekick. She's like the Darth Vader to El Supremo's Grand Moff Tarkin, basically.
Yeah, and honestly,
basically the subordinate.
And honestly, her and El Supremo have quote unquote on this word, but a healthy fucking relationship. If that makes any sense. They actually support each other. They actually go ahead with shit, and they actively support each other when one gets angry over something.
Need to be together.
Messina gets upset when El Supremo flirts with anybody else.
Exactly.
That is true.
What to say, Stryker? Sorry about that.
It's just I ship these two, and I wish them luck with their future.
Exactly. Perfectly said. But basically what happens is, don't want to rush too much of the plot, but Daffers is sent to be brainwashed by the evil snake cult. Notice they did not call it Cobra because Hasbro probably would have sued them for that.
Exactly.
And but Freddie and Scotty are sentenced to be killed by basically sharks and all kinds of different sea monsters. And this is the part
horribly mutated.
That too. They look absolutely freaky.
Time out.
Yep.
We glossed over a certain something before this particular scene.
Oh?
Yes, because believe it or not, at the beginning of the scene, we did, in fact, get introduced to our token dragoness of today.
Oh well, I was going to talk about her basically starting from the portion of the movie. We were going to talk about her now anyway.
Okay, I see.
So Nessie basically shows up in this movie. She first shows up in the medieval section, and it's interesting when she's underwater. She is more of like a green, grayish design compared to the more basically magenta design she has later on. I wonder if that was either a design choice or if it was just like a screw up in the storyboards. But regardless, she definitely has a very honestly kind of beautiful design to her. The way that they actually took like a plesiosaur and they made it look really just appealing in that. Sometimes they
made a freaking plesiosaur sexy.
And they made definitely with like the voice again is really, really cute, and it actually does work well for the character, especially also with the of course you gotta have red hair with that because Scotland. And here's the thing that is interesting is apparently she managed to make it from a lake in the middle of Scotland to like off the coast of say France. It's like, how does that work? It's one of the many weird laps of logic of this movie. Exactly.
Also, again, it's magic. She ain't got to explain shit. Wait.
Absolutely. But yeah, so basically what happens then is that basically Nessie does the whole kind
It's also because Loch Ness goes into the ocean at some point.
True, that's true. But
so like literally just left Loch Ness and went to France for whatever reason.
Exactly, like a vacation or something. Who knows? But like I said, she basically serves as like the basically Deus Ex Machina for this, and then she basically tells Frey, to whistle for her whenever that he needs her. And 500 years later, when they're about to be attacked by these weird, freaky-looking sea monsters, he calls out to her and kind of underwater, I guess you'd call it like a Greek temple kind of place that she lives in. She basically comes in and saves him and Scotty. Now Freddie leaves Scotty on an abandoned island in the middle of the ocean, and then he goes down underwater with her basically to party.
Scotty, he deserved better in this movie.
Exactly.
He deserved better than this movie.
And Freddie basically decides, we're going to have a party with all the plesiosaurs for a while. And meanwhile, El Supremo is this close to taking over, England and later on the world. Nope, let's have a, jazz, dance party. But we do get basically probably the best song in the movie, and it's not just because we're biased, because we
one of my biggest questions.
Exactly, but this song is legitimately great. Like the song "Shy Girl," I don't know, basically this song is probably the best song in the movie, bar none. It actually is one that it actually works outside the context of the movie too. And it's funny how in this portion of the movie, she has that kind of whole lounge singer, I guess like Jessica Rabbit kind of vibe to her. And that combined with the, bottom heavy design that she has, definitely reminds me a lot of the
and the way
Disney
she flaunts it.
Dragonesses and Bluth also.
And the way she flaunts that design as well basically shows that she's a lot more of a thought than you'd think. Especially as a freaking gilf or MILF or whatever.
Exactly. But yeah, she definitely has, like I say, you could definitely tell the animators with this sequence were having a lot of fun with it. This was like a way for them to unwind, I think. From I gotta draw how many things of these, soldiers, running. Oh, let's just do this instead. Let's have fun with it. So you can definitely tell that this sequence too probably is some of the best animation of the movie, because the thing with this movie, especially for a 2D production from some fly-by-night studio in 1991, it feels like it's underwater. You actually get a sense that you actually are under the ocean in that. And that is something that is very hard to do in animation, especially for a first-time studio like this, because that's the thing you really got to consider. That, you had these, animators, but this was the only film this studio ever made. And you can definitely tell they put out all the stops for this, especially this segment, because again, Nessie is really probably one of the better designed characters of the movie as well. Especially again with the rotundness. because it does kind of tie into the whole idea of the Loch Ness Monster being a plesiosaur, which, just a little brief tangent here, just a tiny, tiny little thing here.
Yeah.
There has been many, basically, debate as to what the famous, surgeon's photograph of the Loch Ness Monster is. Some say it was like a, submarine periscope. Some say it was actually some guy's finger. But the theory that I heard, and I don't know where I heard this, the surgeon's photograph was not discovered until 1935, I believe. You know what movie came out a couple years earlier and had a plesiosaur rising from the water? King Kong.
Oh my goodness.
I've heard rumors that the actual photograph, the famous Nessie photograph, is basically an altered photograph of like a screenshot from King Kong, the original 33 one. Now, I don't know if it's legit, but it's always something that I've heard, and looking at it, I definitely can see it, because Willis O'Brien was an animation genius, and he did great with the designs. But that's for the episode on King Kong 33, which we will get to one day.
Okay. I will also say this, however. I remember from a show called Lost Tapes, the one that covered the freaking Dover, or whatever it was, the Dover Demon or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, that I did hear from that episode that the person who made the photo on his deathbed confessed that it was actually just a little a little thing, like it was fake. It wasn't an actual real plesiosaur.
Yeah, no, I've heard of that too.
Yeah.
It's
And
never really been. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I will also say that it also eventually would lead to something like, say, the freaking what was it? It was the 1953 movie, The Monster 20,000 Leagues or something like that.
Beast in 20,000 Fathoms. Yeah, the direct inspiration to Godzilla and
Gojira,
first one of the first kaiju movies ever made, basically with reptilian beasts. But yeah, getting back to this movie after all that stuff, after that the whole tangent, basically. The Shy Girl number is definitely one where you also see, of course, Freddie enjoying himself, which. That's the thing throughout the whole movie, that Freddie seems almost blissful in how he just approaches everything. It's like, again, it reminds me a lot of
I said it before, but the guy's smoother than Sonic.
Yes! Exactly. He's like he has like a blissful smile on his face throughout the entire movie.
The guy honestly feels like honestly, if I had gone through what he went through, I mean, to be fair, he did get saved by Nessie and he did help her, so that ultimately rounds things out a little bit, but holy crap, he lost his freaking dad and he became a frog. And he still had magic, but like, holy hell, like, if I had gone through there, I'd have a few problems myself. Like, I mean, to be fair, the same thing happened.
More bitter, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the same thing happened with freaking Sonic in the Sonic movie and freaking Longclaw, rip Longclaw. But yeah, oh my gosh, wow!
Exactly,
like he is like uber chipper and like has like a sort of air of like, I go to this motherfucker, I will absolutely wreck your shit, and with a smile on my face for it.
Yeah, I find that this movie is actually basically salvaged because Freddie himself is such a charismatic character because of just his smugness and his charm. Not Ben Kingsley voicing this, because he's actually not doing that good a job, but just Freddie the character himself.
Okay.
Really good character.
Okay. In defense of Ben Kingsley, I will say this: he does a fairly good job doing a French accent for freaking Freddie FR07. However, I will say this: even with that, I gotta say that Freddie himself is the least charismatic. Is honestly not too great a character. I mean, he certainly comes clutch in many ways, but like he just feels like a Mary Sue. If that can make sense.
Yeah, definitely, or Marty Stew as they're called. But yeah, basically what happens exactly. But yeah, the Nessie and the other plesiosaurs save the day by tying the basically German submarines with seaweed, which, okay, yeah, why not?
That works.
And then the whole Dapper's brainwashing subplot is like,
that leads me to my question.
And then we just gloss over it.
Yeah, that whole segment leads me to my big question. Why isn't this a society of police stores and no one knows about it?
Well, it's probably the same reason why
There's all kinds of stuff
Wakanda.
under the sea we don't know about. There's all kinds of stuff in the
it's
ocean
literally
we don't
like
know.
it's literally like Sam and Max, in which there's like an entire society of Sasquatches that no one knows about.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Wakanda. It's kind of like Themyscira. It's kind of like freaking the Hidden World. Like
exactly.
They could very much
all
exist.
Those things and more.
They could very much exist, and we'd have no idea they actually did exist.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure technology can probably find Atlantis or maybe something similar to the Hidden World one day, but we don't know.
Exactly.
We don't know.
So yeah, now we basically Freddy saves Daphne from her brainwashing in like 2 seconds, okay? And then we get perhaps we go from the best song in the movie to not the worst.
I have wondered if she was faking being hypnotized.
Yeah, she probably was. She probably was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I did not take that. But anyway, we go from basically the best song in the movie, Shy Girl, to the... Well, none of the songs are bad, but let's just say it is the cheesiest song in the movie. Lay Down Your Arms, as performed by, the band Asia, best known for the song Heat of the Moment in 1982.
Oh, damn, that was them?
They found themselves in 82, and now they're in 91, and they're singing for this movie. But yeah, this song is just, I don't know, to me, it is very, very cheesy. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but that combined with how Freddy dispatches the soldiers, basically he makes karate moves with his hands, and that turns their guns into butterflies. It's like, okay, you didn't want to show him beating up people or something like that, but can you do something a little bit, it's creative, I'll give it that, but it's a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, it's magic. He ain't got to explain shit.
I know it's like a kid's movie and that, but it's very anticlimactic. It's like, couldn't they be a little bit more of a challenge instead of like, I can wave my hands and now you have no weapons, that kind of thing. It's like, what is that,
It's magic, boy.
Exactly.
It's Mary fucking Sue.
So yeah, Freddy basically, they dispatch El Supremo by shrinking him to a very tiny size and trapping him on the equally tiny Big Ben. And then Freddy meets Macinda, and this part, he does not seem to be upset with her at all. It's like, basically, oh, Macinda, hi, how you doing? It's like, not like, oh, you killed my father, or oh, you turned me into this, hideous frog man thing. It's like, he's so casual about it. That's what is just so off with this, final confrontation. Macinda is, completely in character with, how like, oh, I will destroy you and rule the world kind of thing. And yet Freddy is just like treating it like, she came over for a cup of coffee, basically.
Yeah, like, holy hell. I would have had a little more, like, shade thrown at her. Like,
exactly.
I wonder what my father would say about this. Oh, wait a minute.
Exactly. But then that's the thing. He's just so, again, blissful with it.
What's up, Evie?
His mother's, like, never mentioned.
Well, she said
yes, it was
before the movie begins.
Yeah.
They say that she's dead before the movie starts again.
Yeah, you forgot a lot about this movie, to be fair.
We forget this movie, unfortunately.
Because there's so much to remember about this movie. That's the problem. But yeah, basically, Macinda gets away by turning herself into a bird and flying away. Again, in the UK cut. In the American cut, she apparently is defeated by being wrapped around a pole, which, okay.
She
gets away, and again, Freddy does not care. He's just like, oh, we will meet again. And it's like, it's just so out of place. Again, he's always blissful to the point
Train of thought on this.
It's just weird.
Yeah, okay, train of thought. Yeah, like Stryker said, it's kind of in character for him nowadays, and honestly, I would not be opposed to him, like, having enough time to, like, get over the loss of his dad and, like, to maybe become, like, a better person for it. Like, he's had years as being a frog to, like, hone his craft, like, ultimately become somewhat enlightened for the most part. But again, like, maybe a little shade thrown her way, because she still killed her dad and nearly tried to eat him.
Exactly.
Like,
You're exactly
gosh.
right there. Yes.
Also, on the topic of Masira and the whole electricity thing, like, yeah, like even if that enough voltage could have killed her, like she took like getting electrified in the past. Like during Evil Mania, she got shocked, and she's still like, "Oh, I'm a stiff. I don't this shit, bitch." Like, oh my gosh.
Plus, electricity just kind of seems to be one of his superpowers.
I think
exactly.
it's just because like the reason why he was so chill about it was because that was like the characters for that time. You know, like on it.
Yeah,
I
like
can kind of see it. Yeah,
like he knew to control his
now,
anger.
It would be a lot more different. It was made now, it would be a lot more different and probably worse because let's face it, this is the kind of movie you only get once in like 1,000 years. It's like the planets aligned perfectly for this thing, this motion picture to be made, and we're very thankful for it. The movie ends on.
No one even looked at it. Unfortunately, the planets aligned for this movie, and no one looked at it.
Shame. But yeah, the movie ends on a sequel hook with Macinda being out there, and of course Nessie shows up again, basically waving to Freddie. She would have apparently had more of a part in the sequel, which was going to be called Freddie Goes to Washington, and it apparently got so far in production, it actually had basically pencil tests and storyboards done. There was a script, though it has never resurfaced, and this movie was a colossal box office bomb. It was the lowest grossing animated movie ever until 2007 when some CGI version of the 10 Commandments beat it. And that movie also happens to have Ben Kingsley, interestingly enough.
And then there was another one that actually beat that one as well.
Zelgo.
There was
Zelgo, apparently.
It only got...
Oh no, that's a live action movie. Yeah, that's live action. That's a movie that got $30
because it was only shown at one theater in Texas, and it only played in the afternoon on weekends.
That is insane. Imagine working on a movie and then having it get that kind of release. That has to be disheartening.
The theater system
wasn't the end for this movie because, as we mentioned earlier, this movie was re-edited in an American release as Freddie the Frog. It cut out roughly 20 minutes of footage, including a lot of Evil Mania, apparently. And it had James Earl Jones narrating the movie, which, James Earl Jones makes everything better. He's like Brian Blessed or Tim Curry or Christopher Walken.
Yeah, he's
James
pretty
Earl
much
Jones is always welcome in anything.
All of these people have blessed voices, honestly.
Oh,
exactly.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
I have seen both versions, and I can give you a quick rundown of the changes they made because they are stupid.
Yeah.
By all means, Matt, you have the floor.
Lay on it.
All right, so I'm not going to go over every change because we'd be here forever.
Just go with the important ones.
Yeah, the beginning is completely changed. They remove him being in the present France part entirely, and they just started in medieval France.
That's not a bad change.
And then they add a couple more things to it because they flip a few things around. So by the time they actually get to the Britain stuff, it's actually a bit longer than the original version. They explain that he's in modern France because time traveling. Okay.
Honestly, that makes more sense.
It's magic. You ain't gotta explain shit, so
exactly
that works.
Evil Mania is where the big change happens, and they have to cut 10 minutes of the movie to make that song work. They interspersed roughly the next 10 minutes of the movie into Evil Mania because they couldn't show Nazis, they couldn't show KKK, they couldn't show any of that stuff because they were going for a G rating rather than a PG rating that the original had, even though the original tried for a G rating as well. So they removed all of that imagery, all of that stuff to get the G rating, and they just had to butcher that entire song. You still get the song itself, but none of the imagery. It's all just like little intersperses of the next several minutes.
Thank fuck Shy Girl remained the same.
Yeah, that one they didn't touch.
Thank God.
That's good. They knew not to touch Nessie. They knew that they at least had the foresight for that.
Thank God.
And then the majority of the changes that are left are in the final confrontations. They remove the very first fight that Freddie has with Messina when they meet up in the evil lair. They remove the second half of the thug battle that happens. They remove the entirety of the fight with El Supremo and Freddie. They change the fight with Messina the second time. They reuse earlier footage to show that she got wrapped up as a snake and defeated, rather than her transforming into a bird and flying away. So it's just really weird, all the changes they decided. And they said that they did this because, we wanted to make a more coherent story. It makes it more confusing.
Exactly. It sounds confusing. I mean, you cut out that much worth of footage in an animated movie that, again, it's not a long movie, so that is making it, an already short movie even shorter. It's like, why do they do it? It's a weird bit of localization. And again, this wasn't like, like in the 70s, trying to get like a Japanese production in like the US, like, from Gatchaman to Battle of the Planets or anything. No, this is like, something that was released in the UK and it came to the US like 4 years later, but yet they cut it to ribbons. It's like, it's a shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just like, snip,
Yep.
neutered.
Exactly.
Snip, neutered. Snip, like a dog. Snip.
Exactly.
And like you said, it's not just that they were we're editing the stuff to make it a bit simpler. Like, they actually went in and redubbed the narrator with James Earl Jones, and there was one other part that they recast for voice. There are a couple of semi-anthro crows in this movie.
Oh God, yes. How did we forget to talk about them?
They redubbed the crows because, and I am not joking with this, I am 100% straight-faced serious here. They said that the original voice actors sounded too black.
What?
Wow.
They are British punk culture crows, and they said that these crows sounded too black, and they were afraid that would be offensive.
Okay.
If anything, they would ultimately be too British, not too black. What
exactly.
the hell?
Like you said, they're like, British punks of like, the 70s and that. They're not whatever. That's what they did.
Stupid.
Yeah, despite
Nessie remained the same. Like,
at least they say that.
That one they didn't touch, thankfully.
Yeah, thank fuck they didn't touch that.
Despite everything, despite all of the weirdness and things like that, I enjoy this movie. This movie is fun, especially if you get like a group of people, like you get a group of friends, or you get a couple of beers, sit around and watch it. You will have a fun time. I will say.
Also, Nessie thankfully remains the same. She's still charming. She's still passive. She's still very much a welcome protagonist.
Very much.
Thank you very much for keeping her the same.
The gist of this movie is that it is a very unique animated movie, and there is nothing. And with today's basically studio system and the way that movies are made, there will sadly never be another Freddy as FR07, which is a shame because this movie. I don't know who it was who said, too weird to live, too strange to die. That's this movie. Exactly. So now it is time for the topic of the week, the discussion. We're going to talk about other bizarre movie vanity projects, basically. One of the weirdest that I've ever seen, and it actually aired on TV here at like 1 a.m, and I was like almost compelled to watch all of it. Was probably the strangest vanity project ever made. Is Easy Rider 2, not No Way Home, Going Back Home or something like that. The story goes, the landmark, 1960s movie Easy Rider, the rights to it were somehow snatched up by this big, lawyer type who decided to make a sequel to Easy Rider. And he cast himself as the, brother of Captain America, and he's driving around, the U.S., like his brother, except it's set now, and it's all about how we have to, like, respect the troops and how, things like that. It is so unlike the first film. It is crazy. It's like if somebody bought the rights to Citizen Kane and decided to make Citizen Kane 2 and cast themselves as Charles Foster Kane's brother and had him be like a tech mogul. It's like that. It is something that is almost inexplicable why does this exist? Who thought this would be a good idea? Who thought a Easy Rider sequel made 40 years after the original with none of the original cast, no one even close to the talent of the original cast, not even any of the like original music. The music is all like like stock music basically. It is just probably one of the most baffling movies I've seen, and probably one of the most baffling sequels. That and the American Psycho sequel, which was originally a different horror movie, but then they decided to have Patrick Bateman show up, not facing the camera for 2 seconds before he dies in like a minute. But yeah, that is my pick for the Weirdest Vanity Project, is Easy Rider 2, going back home. So Angron, what would you have to say?
There's a lot. I would have to kind of say Bartok the Magnificent, but we already covered that, and honestly, it's more better than worse, so I'm kind of gonna have to say freaking Feel a Day.
Oh God, Feel a
Day. Of all things, because
God.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes,
the film with the cat sex and the freaking imagery, holy hell, this movie.
That is batshit insane,
It
that
is,
movie.
Exactly. That movie is
insane, and yet somehow it still manages to be more or less more cohesive than freaking this film and somehow Dragon Hill for the most part.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow, this movie had a lot of twists and turns. It went from just a simple cat movie with freaking Francis just going about discovering weird stuff, having a weird fever dream, having sex with a purebred, just it just throws a lot of crap on you. And I forget who it was specifically that put this on a top 10 list with the Nostalgia Critic, but man, just wow. I think the Nostalgia Critic put it best when he said, this makes Don Bluth's more ridiculous and more terrifying scenes look positively tame.
Wow.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. But I will say this, I definitely had my pound of fun. It definitely got a little odd with the whole Phoenix Wright / Professor Layton sort of detective work that frickin' Francis went into, but man, this movie, it just felt very bizarre. It's certainly a very pleasant experience, and it's definitely on the better end, but yeah, do be warned, you are going into something that will be very much trippy. Not as trippy as this film, but still, wow. This movie makes Watership Down feel more this movie makes Watership Down feel more tame, and that movie in of itself has a lot of death going for it.
Yep, exactly.
Also, black dogs.
Yep. So, Mathmachine, what would you have to say? Is the Weirdest Vanity Project, film / TV show / media you've seen?
I'm gonna go with a big one, and this is one of my favorite movies to hate: Battlefield Earth.
Oh, yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Oh, goddamn, that movie is so fucking terrible, and John Travolta is eating every bit of scenery that has ever existed.
I thought it was.
No.
That movie is definitely an experience. If you have not seen it, you will definitely remember it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that movie is just an abomination of cinema, and it is so terrible. It is hilarious.
Film, right?
It's the only movie where every single frame is shot at a Dutch angle almost.
That's the Scientology movie that I was thinking of.
Yep, that's the movie.
That's it, exactly. And it was the last movie made by Franchise Pictures, a studio which probably was one of the worst studios to exist in the 20th century. The 21st century. They basically were the equivalent of Monogram Pictures and stuff like that they just released, for the most part, garbage.
Yeah.
So So yeah, Battlefield Earth, that definitely is, that's an excellent choice. So Stryker, what would you have to say?
I haven't seen this, but I have seen clips of it. Fritz the Cat.
Oh yeah, Fritz the Cat. I started that film and never really finished it.
I
It's
love
definitely a
Fritz
movie
the
of its
Cat.
time.
It's
Yeah,
a great
I've heard.
movie.
It's definitely of its time, I feel.
I've heard so many good things about it, even though I heard this is like the first and only rated X animated film ever made.
Yep.
Even more so than Ralph Bakshi's other films. That's certainly
it definitely is a movie that could only exist in the time period it was in. Like 10 years earlier, 10 years later, no. It only exists, when it was made. And to be fair, I haven't seen it, but I've tried seeing clips of it, and I don't know. I mean, it looks good, but man, it's just a little dated for me. I'm sorry. It's like something that I think if you were there in like the CD, Times Square Theater checking this out, you probably would have had a blast. But I feel like now it's a little too distant. Not that it's a bad movie, not at all. But I feel like just personally for my thing, it's a little too distant for my understanding. And again, I like movies like Midnight Cowboy, Five Easy Pieces, the Graduate, all those kind of movies, so I'm not opposed, that kind of cinema in general, The Last Detail, but I don't know, something about Fritz just doesn't work for me.
He's a freaking horny bastard of a cat who goes after women. And also it had some moments where Ralph Bakshi legit recorded a conversation with his dad and some of the Jewish members of the community. So I wouldn't blame you for thinking that, but
by the way, so wouldn't blame you.
Yeah, it is
and then of
very
course
valid.
there was a sequel to it, The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat. That one's actually
Never heard of it.
tamer because it was actually rated R.
Yeah, you'd be forgiven for never hearing of that one because no one from the original was attached to the new one.
Not even Ralph Bakshi?
Studio
Well,
wanted
that's
a
a feat
sequel.
in itself.
No one else wanted a
By
sequel.
Robert
They just churn one out, in other words.
Yeah, so
I see.
Well, fuck.
Yeah. So anyway,
Evie.
LuckyEevee, what would you have to say? Is the weirdest vanity project you've seen?
I don't remember much of it, but Getaven or Champagne and Bullets.
What?
It's literally just like this one man's vanity project.
Okay, wait, what was it called?
Getaven. It's called that because it's supposed to be called Get Even, but the two words are so close together they look like one word.
Getaven?
I see. It sounds.
I would recommend watching Red Letter Media's video on it.
Definitely will have to check that out. That definitely sounds.
Champagne and Bullets, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's episode 44. I'm looking at it right now.
Apparently, it's also called Road to Revenge.
Oh yeah, it has like 17 different titles.
That's a sign of a quality movie right there. But
how many titles though?
Exactly. So now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale for Nessie. Now this is the Nessie from Freddie FR07. Just to clarify. Next week we're going to talk about a different Nessie, but we'll get to that later.
Yep.
I'm going to give this.
We're going to talk about a lot of different Nessies. I can feel it.
Yeah, on various portions of the show. Yes, various different versions of her. But yeah, we'll get to all of them.
Weighs a leg at Lapras. Yoo-hoo!
That's okay. As for Nessie,
actually, I think Lapras is meant to be called Nessie in development. I'll have to check on that.
Yeah, I would have to give her 9 out of 10, and the reason I'm giving her that score, I really would give her 10 if she was in the movie a little bit more. Like if she was in a complete main protagonist from the beginning to the end, she probably would get a perfect score because again, she is one of the better parts of the movie. The animation, the design, the voice, basically all of it is just so well done, and it especially shows how much fun the animators were having with this character and basically the way that they basically designed her, and of course the voice acting, and of course Shy Girl is definitely a huge boost in her favor. That alone, especially her the design for that with the whole lounge singer vibe. That too is another huge boost in the ranking. But yeah, she's gonna get a 9 out of 10 from me.
Yeah,
and, Angron?
I'm basically gonna agree with that because, like you said, she definitely needed to be more involved in the movie. And honestly, I was gonna give her a little lower, like an 8 out of 10, because she needed to. She honestly should have shown up more. And also, Nessie as a character, she certainly helps. She's kind. She honestly feels like one of those kind of young childhood friends that kind of feel like sort of like the mom of the group, like someone like Tanjiro from Demon Soul would, or Demon Slayer, sorry, would ultimately be. But yeah, I will admit that she the moments where she is in there, they're definitely milked for all they're worth. Shy Girl, her curves, her design, her voice, everything about her pretty much screams that she's one of those Nessies that ultimately deserves to be recognized a lot more. And I can't really speak on behalf of something like, say, Happiness, Secret of the Loch, for that sort of thing, but who knows? Who knows? She might remain one of the best Nessies if it wasn't for the fact that Nessie in the Ballad of Nessie exists. But yeah, I will absolutely say that Nessie deserves that 9 out of 10. It's not had she been a different film, it probably would, and should she have had more time, it would have worked a lot better. But holy hell, she is 100% the highlight of that movie. Let's be fair.
Yep. So, Mathmachine, what would you have to give her?
I'm going to keep the train rolling with a 9. Loved her design, loved her voice. I still find it very much the animators are showing their barely disguised fetish here by the fact that they gave the Loch Ness Monster a chest and curves. But it's just the design of her works, and she's got a very sweet motherly voice. Helps that I guess they confirm in the movie she's a grandma. The one aspect I didn't like of her, I'm going to be the minority in this group here, is I didn't like Shy Girl's song as much. I just am not too big a fan on these kind of slower pop songs, but more so because the song, more than any part of the movie, just basically kidnaps the movie and just stops it dead. And
here's your fetish material, people. You're not leaving until you get it.
Granted, there's not much of a story here to be kidnapped, but that's another thing entirely. And yeah, I do wish that she had gotten more, and if the rumors are true about the script and her being more in the sequel, she probably would have been a 10 in that. But it is a damn shame that she did not get more screen time, and quite honestly, she should have been Freddie's love interest, not Dapper's. Hashtag
or the car.
That too. So, LuckyEevee, what would you have to say?
I think 7. But I absolutely do agree that she should have been the love interest instead of, the human that was literally just made to be the love interest.
Dollar Store, Black Widow,
we all are in agreement on this. We all are in agreement.
She has no character outside of being a love interest.
And occasionally kicking ass.
Yeah, but only occasionally, of course. So, basically, tongue twister here. Stryker, what would you have to say?
I agree with pretty much everyone here. She's one of the most wholesome characters in any movie.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore the Don Bluth bottom-heavy design, actually. It's just been something that I've loved since my childhood, so...
Yeah.
Same.
So, if you have any other questions, or if you want to speculate on how weird Freddie Goes to Washington would have been, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com, or you can email us at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Next time, we'll be talking about the 2011 animated short, The Ballad of Nessie.
Hey.
We're going from one Nessie to another. And until then, thank you guys so much for listening, and take care.
Yep. Laters. Evil Mania.